All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
It is the Mark Thompson Show. Without Mark Thompson today on a Friday, Albert is with me. I like your aloha hat. Aloha to you.
Aloha, welcome. It's Friday. We made it.
We made it to Friday. And it is going to be a great Friday show with Friday Fabulous Florida. Albert has put together another good one. Jim Avila will be here, former ABC White House correspondent. We've got journalist Michael Shure on tap as well. And then, of course, Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster, coming in. And he's got a lot of movies and streaming options to share with you today. So it's going to be really good. I'm excited, Albert.
Me too. And Mark is out of town. I think he's doing some fun things while we're holding it down for him. I do have an update for Mark's Madness, which we could get to also at some point.
Let's do it. Let's do it right off the top, because Mark's Madness doesn't stop just because Mark Thompson has taken a 3-day weekend. You know how that goes.
let me get it ready.
We're down to what? I think it's now. Is it Final Four yet?
No, it's the final, so I can announce the ones that made it. Obviously, people could just check their brackets, but
Okay, I like it. So,
but I'll share what made it and what's going to happen next.
We got a lot of alohas. I think your hat is giving people the Aloha Friday spirit. So we love it. Absolutely. All right. So the brackets are doing well. I am not doing well in my bracket, but that's okay because I've had a really good time with Mark's Madness. And it's a nice diversion, really, from the fact that the markets are still all over the place and the tariffs are rising from China 125%. We'll get to that. The top economists in the world are not so happy. And it's interesting because they all seem to say the same thing, which is they're questioning the brain power behind these tariff moves. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Also, Canada is coming forward to say, listen, we'd like to make a deal and we don't understand why you're not working with us. So we have some video about that as well. But first, let's jump into Mark's Madness, because I know that everyone is on pins and needles trying to figure out exactly what happened yesterday. And I think I had a drop in there, and I don't know how it ended up doing.
Well, I could give a... there we go. I'm just getting the music ready. Yep. I will give an update on what did make it, okay, what did win yesterday. And the ones that made the final is I Blame You, which is your drop him, and we have AOC Baby Girl. So those are the two that have officially made the finals. The finals will be played out on Monday. So we'll let the anticipation build over the weekend, and the finals will be run on Monday, and then there'll be one winner, and we'll see who will win it all.
So it all comes down to I Blame You versus AOC's Girl Baby Girl.
Yes.
That's kind of how I thought. Along the way, I made a lot of stumbles to getting there, but I kind of visualized that in the end. Who's at the leaderboard right now? Is it still Michael Snyder who's taking the top spot?
Michael Snyder is close to the top, but also
Jane.
Jane is number one. Matt, who's been hovering around the top, his bracket finally broke, but if you see further down this list, we have one Mark Thompson, who is also in the running. He is above Michael Snyder.
Oh, so Mark is above Michael at this point. All right. I don't see you and I anywhere in the top.
Oh no, my bracket's horrible.
No,
I think I'm 13 and 17, close to the end.
Well, it's interesting that the top ones you have all have I Blame You.
Yeah, and you're not too far off. 18 picks, correct, Kim?
Okay. All right.
And you have AOC Baby Girl winning it all. So
hey, that's pretty good for my first bracket.
Very good.
I'll take it. Wonderful. So the voting for these two starts on Monday? Is that how it is?
Monday.
Okay.
And then I guess we'll announce the winner on Tuesday morning. So prepare accordingly.
Prepare for defeat. Yep. I think if I had to guess, I think I Blame You is going down to Girl Baby Girl. We'll see.
I think you're trying to influence the vote, Kim. But
I'm not saying like I would back my own, but I just think that AOC is pretty strong. So
both
I
are
don't
very
know.
strong drops. It's going to be. I think
Mhm.
there's a reason why everybody picked those
Yeah.
towards the top. Lulu can't Lancaster try ignoring it. That one almost made it, but not quite.
It was
But
close. It was close.
we'll have until Monday, and then we'll see what happens. So everybody just sleep on it, think about it, and then we'll see what happens.
Oh, I see Uncle Russ surprised that that Mark bet against my drop. You know, it's not surprising to me. After all, I'm not his favorite McAllister, so this is the way that I expect to be treated. This is how it goes with Mark.
Which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Uh-huh. Okay, let's jump right into the stories. Actually, before we really jump into the tariffs, I saw this story about Elon Musk, who was playing video games from his jet and posting it, live streaming it, and apparently this is all there he is. You can see a little picture of him at the bottom of the screen. This is him playing video games above his jet, aboard his jet using the Starlink Wi-Fi connection. And I guess he was posting this to say, you know, look how well Starlink works above my plane. But the video apparently ends rather abruptly, as you can see the chat coming up there, and people start hassling him for the chat. And now House Democrats are using this. They're saying he is absolutely, Congressman Robert Garcia from California, calling Elon Musk the most unlikable person in the United States. He was speaking yesterday and said he really wants to make sure that Trump knows Musk has to be out of his Doge job by May 30th, and he better be gone. And he used this live streaming of Musk playing video games and all the comments, the horrible, awful, nasty comments coming up on this game over Wi-Fi aboard the jet, and the whole thing ends very abruptly. I guess Musk sees all the comments and shuts it down. So, yeah, the most unlikable person in America. Which
I
is
think
saying
it was the in-game chat too. So it's those of so I think he's live streaming it, and people are seeing that he's live streaming the game, so they're joining his games and they're spamming his chat saying like he ruined the country. Some of them are asking for money. So it's a good mix of comments.
Garcia said the man can't even go and play video games anymore because people he's playing with are all harassing him online. And so he's feeling more and more isolated, posting less on social media, distancing himself a bit more from the Trump administration. And he says, Garcia, I think he understands he's the most unlikable person in the country. So he said we have to continue that pressure. And Garcia joined 77 other lawmakers sending a letter to Trump saying, remember, he can only be a special government employee for 130 days and then he's out. So, yeah. That's
even his gameplay was getting criticized by a lot of the internet. People who know video games know video games. So when they saw his gameplay, they're like, and Elon was claiming a whole bunch of things like, oh yeah, I'm a top 10 player in the world, and everybody's watching him play, and they're all skeptical. So Elon doesn't have respect from the gaming world either. So
poor Elon. He can't catch a break, this guy. All right, let's move on to tariffs. I kid. Let's move on to tariffs because today it really is escalating with China. They're putting 125% tariffs on America in a retaliation for Trump's tariffs on them. And they're also now trying to partner with the EU in going against Trump and working together. So that's a new development. Let's take a look at how the markets are doing today.
So we begin this hour on Wall Street, where stocks, as you see right next to me, they're mixed. Traders are trying to plan around these changing tariff headlines. This morning, China raised its levies on U.S. goods to 125%. President Trump has tried to calm concerns about the market while pointing blame at other countries. Listen.
There'll be a transition cost and transition problems, but in the end, it's going to be a beautiful thing. We're doing again what we should have done many years ago. We let it get out of control, and we allowed some countries to get very big and very rich at our expense.
CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady.
Yeah. So here we go. And it's ratcheting up. And we have China, again, as you heard, raising tariffs to 125% on American goods. It was 84%. Now it's 125%. And it's not going well. The president of China, Xi Jinping, is saying this: economic bullying is not going to be tolerated. The new tariffs begin on Saturday. The Chinese finance ministry spokesman is saying that this repeated raising of tariffs by President Trump will become a joke in the history of the world economy. They say, however, if the United States insists on continuing to substantially infringe on China's interests, China will resolutely counter and fight to the end. Xi Jinping says there are no winners in a tariff war here. For more than 70 years, he said China has always relied on itself and the hard work for development, never relying on favors from anyone and not fearing any unreasonable suppression. They're standing firm against Trump's tariffs and safeguarding the common interests of the international community to ensure, he said, that humanity is not dragged back into a jungle world where might makes right. And so that's the response from China. They're not backing down and not willing to negotiate. They're not calling. Trump has said 75 countries have called, many of whom haven't received a call back. But what we do know is that China's not one of them. As a matter of fact, China is talking to the EU. They're saying they'd like to invite the European Union to team up against Trump's bullying. They are looking at Spain and other trading partners, trying to figure out how to work around Trump and the United States. So now you have the rest of the world allying against the United States, at least when it comes to trade. And that's, I feel, very concerning. Very concerning. One of the things China said as well, if the U.S. continues to impose tariffs on Chinese goods exported to the United States, China will ignore it. And there are other countermeasures to come. So, the markets around the world continue to tumble. Asian markets down, the Nikkei, the Hong Kong stocks all down. This is, we called it a couple of weeks ago a ripple effect. I think it's more like a tsunami effect, is what it looks like to me. And many countries of the world are willing to negotiate. The Premier Doug Ford, he's been pretty tough when it comes to Trump. Remember, he's trying to increase the cost of energy exported to the United States. This Canadian official, Doug Ford, is saying, listen, we're here to talk, but you have to talk to us. I think we have video of Doug Ford from Canada.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Talking about what it will take for Canada to drop their tariffs tomorrow. Here's what he has to say.
You surprised that the White House didn't pause tariffs on Canada, perhaps our closest friend and ally, as it did with several other countries, several of whom are not necessarily close friends or allies?
Yeah, we were shocked that we weren't part of the group per se, and number one customer. We're both each other's number one customer, and we need to get through this and bring certainty back to the people of the United States and Canada, certainty to the markets, as you mentioned. The Dow is down, the S&P is down, because there's still uncertainty. I know it took a little bump up yesterday, but the reality is a tariff on Canada is a tax on Americans, and that's the last thing we want to see to the American people. We didn't start this. President Trump aimed at Canada and the rest of the world for the most part, and we just need to get rid of these tariffs. We'll drop our tariffs tomorrow if President Trump drops the tariffs. We always believe in the AMCAN fortress working together, make the two strongest nations in the world. That's what we want to do.
Could you see Canada, Premier, actually rolling back those tariffs on the U.S. as an olive branch to the Trump administration?
Well, as long as we know the tariffs are going to be dropped against Canada as well. If we have a mutual understanding, if they feel comfortable with us going first, by all means. But we need insurance that President Trump's going to drop those tariffs shortly after we do.
So here we have our friend and neighbor saying, yes, we want to make a deal. Yes, we'll take the tariffs away. We'll even go first as long as we know that America will go first. Crickets. How embarrassing and how scary. These are friendly neighbors. Maybe it's just that I don't understand tariffs. Wait, the top economists in the world say this is a bad idea as well. As a matter of fact, on his Substack, top economist Paul Krugman, who's a Nobel laureate and considered one of the top economists in the world, titled his Substack, listen to this, "Trump is stupid, erratic, and weak." You can imagine what else he has to say on this. Here it is. Anyone, he says, sounding the all clear on tariffs or Trump economic policy in general should be kept away from sharp objects and banned from operating heavy machinery. He's saying in his piece on Substack, Krugman, Trump is stupid, erratic, and weak. He says it's foolish to think Trump's pivot on tariffs with this whole 90-day pause, when he announced he was now putting a 10% tariff on every country and a 125% tariff on China for the next 90 days, has actually improved anything. Krugman says we are still at risk of a major financial crisis. He said the rest of the world now knows that Trump is weak as well as erratic. I mean, I think we all knew that, right? Erratic for sure. So he says, are things settled now? Now that we have the pause and Trump pivots? No, he says. Hardly. The pause is only for 90 days, and then what happens? No one, he says, including Trump, has the faintest idea. And that's what we were talking about yesterday, how it seems like these decisions are being made at a whim. Trump even said that the decision to pause for 90 days was made that morning and quickly written up. They didn't even have a lawyer go over it. They just wrote it from the heart. And that's how it's gone. Krugman writes, if you were a business owner or executive, would you make any major investments or long-term commitments over the next few months? He said, I wouldn't. Research has found tariffs lighter than these, would impose a nasty shock on the United States economy. And that's what we're seeing. There's a study out of Michigan looking at consumer confidence, and this is before Trump pushed pause. People are afraid to spend money right now, and they're afraid of what's going to happen to the economy. By the way, Mr. Krugman is not the only person who is very concerned about what's happening in the economy. Former Fed chair, Treasury Secretary rather, Janet Yellen, had a lot to say to President Trump as well. She, of course, is a professor emeritus at UC Berkeley, and she was on CNN and they asked her about Trump's handling of the economy. And she said, as a good professor would, I'm afraid I can't give it a passing grade. She said, this is the worst self-inflicted wound I have ever seen on an administration impose on the well-functioning economy. She's not the only economist. We saw Krugman. There are others. It's scathing. And then you have Stephen Miller, the Trump mouthpiece, who has been nothing but, as you would expect, conciliatory to Trump, saying that they inherited an economy in a state of calamity and catastrophe, and what Trump is doing is wonderful, when we know that's not true. Yellen said just last year in October that the United States economy is the envy of the world. But is it anymore? Yellen said Trump inherited an economy where growth was actually very strong and unemployment numbers were low. There was an outstanding record of job creation, and inflation, while not at the target of the Federal Reserve, which is 2%, was coming down. So she said we had a very well-functioning economy and that Trump has taken a wrecking ball to it. And there we go. Yeah, good old Stephen Miller. So that's where we stand right now. And I don't know. Speaking of the EU and it working together with China, the EU saying to Trump on tariffs, we'll retaliate when we're ready, not when you tweet. So your tweets and your freakouts and whatever else doesn't make us respond to you. Pretty scary. There was a big press briefing at the White House this morning. And switching gears a little bit here, we know that Trump is now announcing a $600 million deal across the board with these 5 law firms that he was going after for pro bono work. The series of agreements with 5 major law firms end in $600 million in pro bono work as they try to keep the pressure up on these law firms that they're angry went against Trump, or Trump is angry, went against him in previous cases. So the law firms that are now bending a knee and submitting, it would seem, Kirkland and Ellis, Allen, Overy, Shearman, Sterling, Simpson, Thatcher, Bartlett, and Latham and Watkins, they're all agreeing to perform $125 million each in pro bono legal work. And that is the highest figure that has been seen yet in any of these deals brokered by Trump and various legal firms. So, and this is over, apparently, it seems like the retribution tour, but technically, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission sent letters to these firms asking about their hiring practices and implying that firms that have efforts to diversify their workforce could violate employment laws. So here we go again with the DEI. It's heating up every single day. And now we get to immigration. Because ICE is taking people that they are arresting or detaining, and where they were picked up is absolutely not where they end up. They're taking them thousands of miles away from the cities in which they were caught so that they can separate them from their families, from their legal representation. It's a tactic. It's a tactic. One detainee, or I don't know what you want to call them, person arrested by ICE, was transferred 1,300 miles away from home, even though there were 2 detention facilities that had room closer to home. And this is not unique. They are using this power where they can decide where they want to detain migrants and remove them from their support systems. So ICE says the detention is non-punitive. They say it's practicality and logistics, but the way in which they're holding people doesn't seem to give them much of a fighting chance. Speaking of immigration, the Supreme Court ruled yesterday that Trump has to facilitate the return of this man who was mistakenly deported, this Maryland dad who was deported to El Salvador. The emergency ruling that came down yesterday instructs a lower judge to clarify the language of her order, but does say that she acted properly when she told the Trump administration that Kilmar Abrego Garcia's case, if it had been handled properly, he would not have been sent to El Salvador. So they want a time frame to be established for this, and none of the judges dissented in this. They said that district court should continue to ensure the government lives up to its obligations to follow the law. And they want Mr. Abrego Garcia brought back to America. This is a man who has lived in Maryland since he was 16. He was, when he was 19, early 20s, 19, early adulthood, legally allowed to stay in the United States. So now the Supreme Court says, can't do that, got to bring him back. Which does give me a little hope, because you've heard the Trump administration say, we don't want him back, even though he was deported in error. And there are worries about exactly where he is and whether he's come to harm. So we'll keep our eye on that case. There's been a memo that Marco Rubio apparently wrote about Mahmoud Khalil. This is the student, I believe from Columbia grad school, who was leading protests against the war in Gaza. And that goes against the thought police for the Trump administration. They don't want you to do that. And so that goes against your student visa in their mind. And he has been detained as well. Well, now a memo has been released about this, because there's a deadline for the government to provide evidence that Mahmoud Khalil poses a national security threat to the United States. And the Trump administration responded with this memo, only citing the Columbia student protesters' beliefs for justifying his deportation. Just his beliefs. So, not that he's a security threat or anything else, just his beliefs, his thoughts. This week, an immigration judge in Louisiana ordered the federal government to provide evidence justifying its attempt to deport him. And so, Marco Rubio, Secretary of State of the United States, responds Wednesday night with a 1.5-page memo citing an obscure provision of the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. He said this, that while Khalil's past, current, or expected beliefs, statements, or associations are otherwise lawful, the provision allows alone to personally determine whether or not he should remain in the country. He said allowing Khalil to stay in the United States would create a hostile environment for Jewish students in the United States. Rubio writes, the foreign policy of the U.S. champions core American interests and American citizens, and condoning anti-Semitic conduct and disruptive protests in the United States would severely undermine the significant foreign policy objective. That leads Khalil's attorney to say, so basically you have no case against him. That's all you got. That this is really a case about whether lawful permanent residents and other immigrants in the United States can speak out about whatever they want, be that the conflict between Israel and Gaza, or the Palestinians, whatever, or Hamas, whatever it is. Whether they can speak out without fear of deportation for expressing beliefs that the First Amendment completely protects. And then he asks the question, are U.S. citizens going to be next? Which is a hell of a question, because we saw Trump on Air Force One saying, yeah, actually, he'd like to take the worst criminals that are American citizens, born and bred, and deport them too. It's like they don't understand the Constitution. Did you ever read it? Can't do that. So that's what's going on there. Meanwhile, CNN had this exclusive report saying that El Salvador is sharing gang intelligence and information with the United States. And also they are requesting certain people that they would like deported back to El Salvador. So I guess we're in this information sharing zone with El Salvador, but we can't pick up the phone and say, hey, we sent this guy to you on accident. We'd really like to get him back. Yes, El Salvador, according to CNN, is sharing intelligence with the United States about gang members that they want back they're providing complete records on them before formally requesting their deportation.
What?
It's true. They say we raise our hands and say, look, this guy. And yes, they say this is not random. The people that are being selected, not random. So far, 270 men have been deported to El Salvador and accused of being members of the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang or the MS-13 gang tied to El Salvadorians as well. El Salvadorans, not an I in there. So that's the way it is. I guess we can share information, but we don't have a good enough relationship to say, okay, can you send this guy back? Crazy. And scary at the same time. All right, let's move to fired federal workers. The Department of Education sent out a letter finally to the people they're letting go saying your position is being abolished. The reduction in force notices went out. More than 1,300 federal employees impacted by the Department of Education's reduction in force got their official separation notices yesterday. It says, it is with great regret. This is from the Department of Education Secretary Linda McMahon. It is with great regret that I must inform you, your position is being abolished and you have been reached for reduction in force action. And that's the way it is. The beginning of the end. In addition to laying off people without going through civil service protections, which apparently, according to the NAACP, is illegal, they know it's illegal, according to attorneys. It damages people. They're damaging not only what they say is deep state, but they're damaging really dedicated federal workers working professionally on behalf of education, families, young people, damaging families and kids in these communities, many of them who actually voted for this administration. And now look what happens. Their kids are paying the price. So the letter came out because they have to provide 60 days in notice, alerting federal employees that their final days are coming. And on June 10th, they will no longer be employed. That's great. So, another hit to the federal government. Abolished. Yep. All the protests don't seem to matter. This is what they're going to do. Apparently, they have to do it quickly, get it all done. There was a meeting at the White House, a cabinet meeting yesterday, where Elon Musk was talking about all the money that he's saving America. And I don't know, I forget the exact numbers, but the number came way down. Originally, he was going to cut, this many billions, and now it's lowered a little bit. So I don't know. Meanwhile, speaking of cabinet members, RFK Jr. is saying that by September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic. By September. Pretty good. People have been trying to figure this out for a long time, but we're going to know by September. He apparently, RFK Jr., who is the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary, has launched a massive testing and research effort that will determine the rising cause of childhood autism rates in the country. He is involving hundreds of scientists around the world and says the answers will come this fall. By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic, and he says we will be able to eliminate those exposures. That's a pretty lofty goal there. Who's going to choose from all the reasons that the scientists you invite to participate offer? Who will choose the right one? RFK Jr.? Well, is he the one that's going to make the proclamation about what causes autism? Let me guess. He's going to say vaccines, which is absolutely untrue. but he's been a naysayer for vaccines, I would say, wreaking havoc on communities all over the world. If you've heard about what happened in Samoa, it's crazy. Finally, after a second child death last week because of measles, he finally said the best way to protect your child is by getting them the vaccine, the measles vaccine. He's all over the map on this. Can't believe anything that comes out of this guy's mouth. And
We all kind of expected it when he got appointed.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Scientists don't know what causes autism. They have researched this for years and years, whether it's environmental, genetic, biological, whether it's some type of combination. They don't know. So I don't know, Albert, how we're supposed to figure it out by September.
I mean, hats off to him. He's what's next? Can he find a cure for cancer or something like that? That would be great. So
Yeah.
RFK is doing big things. So
Big things.
hopefully,
Yeah, we'll get it all figured out. We've got a fall deadline.
yeah.
There's, by the way, been no reliable study that has shown a link between autism and any vaccine. But Trump said, apparently, that it could be based on a shot. So here we go. I don't know. He said this. If you can come up, this is what Trump said. If you can come up with that answer where you stop taking something, you stop eating something, maybe it's a shot, but something is causing it. I don't think it's that simple. But yeah, we're going to know by the fall. Here we go. So
maybe the light from inside the body will work, Kim.
maybe that's what it is. Maybe
the
that's what it
bleach
is.
inside, whatever.
There's a story that came out yesterday, Albert, and this is kind of a massive thing, that Los Angeles County is planning to pay $4 billion to settle nearly 7,000 claims of childhood sexual abuse that apparently happened inside juvenile facilities and in foster homes. It is one of the largest sex abuse settlements in United States history. They still have to officially get that approved by county officials, but it's $1 billion more than what county officials had anticipated as the worst case scenario in this. So that's a huge settlement out of the Los Angeles area. Is it time for Friday Fabulous Florida?
We have a couple shout outs before we get to Florida. We have starting off with Brian.
Look, Brian with $18. He says, Passover begins tomorrow evening. My family sends a lot of love for everyone for a Passover of peace, goodness, and lots of family hugs and in good health. He writes.
Thank you.
Brian, what a really lovely thing to do. $18 to the Mark Thompson Show. And what a nice thing to say. Do you say happy Passover? If so, happy Passover, peaceful Passover to you as well. Luis with $5. Here's to the year of the woman in Mark's Madness. The final 2 drops are credited to women. It mirrors the NCAA tournament, women outdrawing the men. Yeah, thank you, Luis. Girl, baby, girl, don't even play, and I blame you. Thank you. Also, Luis with $5. Trump equals George Santos with a cult following, a wide range of compulsive lying by megalomaniac sociopath in the service of self-enrichment. True. As a matter of fact, I was watching Jimmy Kimmel last night, and I saw a clip of George Santos, who remains steadfast in his devotion to Trump and was saying once again that Trump could blow someone away on the streets of New York, and that George Santos said he would still love him and follow him. Craziness. Thank you, Luis, for the $5 twice. And thank you, Harry Magnan, for $10. Five for each McAllister. I really appreciate that. Unlike Mark, he says, I don't play favorites. Harry, thank you. This show is crowdfunded. We can't make it happen without you. And it's been apparently a rough month. So huge thank you. Love to see the contributions coming in to the Mark Thompson Show. You can find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. Of course, as you see, the super chats and super stickers are open, but also there's Patreon and PayPal and all kinds of ways to help fund the Mark Thompson Show. So huge thank you for that. While we're thinking of it, please click the thumbs up button and please click subscribe as well. I think we're at what is it, 114,000 subscribers now, Albert?
Let me. Yeah,
Yeah.
116. So
Oh,
yeah.
116,000. Okay. So things are getting really good. I'm going to keep click the subscribe button if you haven't already. And thank you for all the ways you support the show. Really, really appreciate it. All right, Albert, here it comes. It is time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
We're starting strong. Cops bust a drunk man wearing a pink thong, fake breasts, and a pink wig. This is in an Applebee's. A drunk man wearing a pink wig, fake breast, and a pink thong was arrested Friday night for causing a disturbance outside of Applebee's, where concerned diners had their eating good in the neighborhood a little bit disrupted. Police say 49-year-old Daniel Ciriello was so intoxicated, oh my God, his eyes are crossed, so intoxicated that he was unable to provide for his own safety and well-being as he was stumbling around the Applebee's parking lot in Clearwater, Florida. The extremely disoriented Ciriello apparently tried to get into a car that didn't belong to him. And when questioned by deputies, he was unable to answer basic questions like, do you know where you are? Do you know where you came from? Do you know what state you're in? No, none of these questions could he answer. They also say he had some interesting items on his body, including the fake breasts and the wig. He was arrested for disorderly intoxication, booked into the county jail where they changed him into this nice orange outfit here. And he got out of jail on Saturday after pleading to a misdemeanor charge, had to pay $570 in fines and court costs as well. He lives near Applebee's, apparently. He's very close by. So, yeah, he's been sad. He had to go through a divorce a couple of years ago, and apparently it's not going well for him.
It's a little disappointing that we can't get his full
Picture?
getup. His full getup from the Applebee's in the mugshot.
It would be nice. It would have been also nice maybe if there was some chest cam video from the arrest. Yeah, the pink thong and the fake boobs. That had to be a sight. Oh well, there he goes. All right, the next one. This Florida man was sunbathing on a beach, and he was left screaming bloody murder after a woman drove over him on the beach. He was at Ormond Beach in Florida, and this lady in a Jeep Wrangler just came barreling down the sand, and thump thump, there he goes. This 30-year-old guy from Ocala, Florida. You say Ocala? He was lying face down on the sand in the beach north of Daytona Beach when he was hit by this Jeep, according to the Volusia County Sheriff's Department. And he was hurt, serious injuries here. Broke his leg, fractured his right forearm. He had third-degree burns, a fractured pelvis. They take him into a hospital. He's doing okay now. There he is. The driver was a 61-year-old woman trying to back into a parking spot on the beach, accidentally crossed over the travel lines. This man's name is Colson. He said he was left screaming bloody murder after his afternoon was interrupted. He said, I just got I guess this is the woman. He said, I just got a Jeep a couple of weeks ago, which is why he was visiting the beach that morning, something he wanted to do. Oh, he got a Jeep a couple weeks ago too. He said, all of a sudden a tire was going over my head and I'm just laying face first, crying and screaming. Horrible. Yeah. So he said as he was looking over his body, he realized how bad his injuries were. But again, he's going to be okay. The driver of the Jeep that hit him on the beach did stay, cooperated with police in the investigation. She was cited for careless driving, not impaired at all, just a mistake. So there you go. And there he is in the hospital. The next story, and I don't think it gets more Florida than this one. A man turns iguana eggs into breakfast. This happened on Marco Island, Florida. where the owner and founder, John Johnson of Down Goes Iguana, this is the group he has founded, has been removing these invasive pests for years, responding to calls and apparently getting rid of these lizards on site. He said, when you remove hundreds of pests in a year, you've got a lot of these lizards to deal with. And so that is where this breakfast that he has cooked up was born, with the iguana eggs. It is an invasive species. The green iguana has been spotted all over South Florida. They burrow into seawalls, they damage landscaping, apparently compromise pool structures, which can lead to big costs for people. He says, I have the tools to help, and after I'm done, I might as well do something a little different. Where other people see nuisance, he sees a breakfast opportunity. So he took a sharp knife, harvesting iguana eggs, and it's like a typical egg recipe. He says he combines the yolk of the eggs with a little milk, whisks them up with some salt and pepper, a little Latin-inspired spice maybe, a little fajita seasoning and some garlic, scrambles them, puts in some diced ham as well and some onions, like a classic omelet. He said they're eggs, so I treat them like eggs. If they taste like eggs, and I put this in front of you and didn't tell you what it was, you would have no clue whether it was an iguana egg or a chicken egg. There's a way to deal with the high egg prices.
Would you try some, Kim?
I would not try iguana eggs. No. It doesn't matter.
You gotta try at least once.
No. I'm not eating a lizard egg. That's weird food. Not doing it. Would you try it? You're maybe more adventurous.
Yeah, I'll try it. I mean, I don't want to see the process of them making it. It doesn't look appetizing at all, but I'll try some.
You'll try an iguana egg for breakfast, an iguana omelet? Okay. All right, so that's what we got for you. 3 stories, right, Albert?
I think we have one more. I put it in there.
Okay. This is a good one too. 4th story. This Florida man was arrested for illegally renting out a home that he didn't own, allegedly, from Punta Gorda, Florida. A woman who moved to Florida for a fresh start says instead she walked into a nightmare after discovering that the man she rented a home from didn't actually own the property at all. Her name is Amanda. She and her daughter relocated from Ohio to
It's a
Punta
wild
Gorda.
idea, but it just might work.
They found what they thought was the perfect rental. She said the listing on Facebook appeared to be legitimate. Okay, red flag, first of all. This popular realtor had posted it and told her to reach out to the homeowner, Clinton. They say he had great reviews. People were saying he's amazing. But about a month into their lease, the 2 women showed up at the home and asked, 2 women rather, showed up at the home and asked her what she's doing in their dead grandpa's house. That's when she learned the man who rented
I'm sorry.
the man who rented her the home had no business renting out that house at all. She said, I was stunned, I was hurt, mad, embarrassed all at once. It was very deceiving. Deputies say that he had been paying the property taxes and renting out this home despite not having legal ownership or any right to do so. The actual owners, who were out-of-state family members of the deceased homeowner, were unaware until they actually came down to Florida.
It's not
and
fake.
visited
That's
the
real.
property. So now the woman and her daughter have been forced to move, lost their security deposit, and all the money that they'd saved for their relocation, probably about $7,500 hit for them in all. And they say it was everything they had coming down from Ohio. And now they say we're just having to learn to figure out how to live paycheck to paycheck. This man was arrested, now facing a felony charge of property fraud. For an amount between $20,000 and $50,000. They think he'd been illegally renting out this home for more than a year and that he had collected more than $20,000 in income. So they're hoping by sharing this story that people won't fall victim to similar scams.
sucker.
He doesn't look sorry in this picture. I'm going to give the mugshot for defiance and just general appearance 6.5. What
He's
think,
like
Albert?
a 3. The neck is scaring me. The neck area.
Okay.
Don't
Albert
look
gives him a
if you,
3.
Yeah, if you don't look in the neck area, you would score way higher. But yeah,
It is time to vote. The options are again: cops bust a drunk guy wearing a pink thong, fake boobs, and a pink wig in the Applebee's parking lot. A Florida man sunbathing on a beach is driven over by a Jeep. A Florida man arrested for illegally renting out a home he didn't own. Or a man turning iguana eggs into breakfast. I turn to you, Albert. What is your favorite Friday Fabulous Florida story of the day?
yeah. So then, in the chat, they like the Florida in quotations man, the guy who's 62% of the vote. We have 20% on saving money on eggs. Extreme sunbathing was an option, and not your landlord was the last option. I do like saving the money on the eggs. I think that's the first time. It's resourceful. I haven't seen it yet, and it's very Florida. Like only in Florida will people be eating iguana
eggs.
eggs.
Yeah, you're going for iguana eggs. I have to go with the majority here for pink thong Applebee's guy. Yeah.
I mean, you'd already think Applebee's in general. You see a lot of things that you don't want to see. Not quite like Waffle House, but then I think even in Florida, like in Florida, Applebee's is like steps above just your regular Applebee's. So
I think so. Never know what you're
Makes
going to find. And that is Friday Fabulous Florida.
Okay, are you muted?
Oh, am I muted?
Yeah, there you're back.
Oh, and that, my friends, is Friday Fabulous Florida.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
All right, we have Jim Avila, former ABC White House correspondent, journalist Michael Shure coming up as well. But let's do just a touch of news before we get to them to talk about this week in politics, because the markets are just about ready to close, and I think it's worth finding out what's going on. So without any further ado, it's time for the news on The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. Stocks are wrapping up a wild week as trade uncertainty impacts Wall Street. The major averages opened lower, then they climbed higher in this roller coaster of trading we've got going on. The moves come after China raised tariffs on U.S. imports to 125%, and the European Union said it is sending a trade representative to Washington, D.C. to try and sign some deals. Yesterday, there was a helicopter that crashed into the Hudson River in New York City. 6 people were killed. They say this helicopter might have run out of fuel. The owner of the helicopter tour company says the chopper was heading back to base to fuel up right before it plunged into the Hudson. The NTSB is expected to give an update today on the early stages of its investigation. There's at least 3 people that have passed away after a small plane crashed into a car in Florida. This happened in Boca Raton. The plane and the car both burst into flames, the wreckage landing on nearby railroad tracks. The fire spokesperson says all 3 people aboard the plane did not survive, and a person in the car was injured as well. There was black smoke that could be seen for miles around. That small aircraft was headed toward Tallahassee. The Menendez brothers' resentencing could end today, or their bid to be resentenced, in a Los Angeles Superior Court. A judge is expected to hear arguments about whether LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman can withdraw a motion filed by his predecessor, George Gascon. Hochman is trying to block efforts to change the original sentence of Eric and Lyle Menendez, who are serving life in prison without parole for the murders of their parents in their Beverly Hills home in 1989. It's been a long time they've been in jail, and now they're trying to get out. Yeah. The White House says illegal immigrants must leave now. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the deadline under the Alien Registration Act is today. The act says all foreign nationals in the United States longer than 30 days must register or face imprisonment. Leavitt warned that if you've registered and you leave now, you may have the opportunity to return later legally. But if you don't, you can't. President Trump's special envoy is in Russia as the White House pushes for an end to the war in Ukraine. Steve Witkoff held talks with the Russian president, Vladimir Putin, in St. Petersburg today. Putin was seen on state TV greeting Witkoff. Comes as a deal for a possible ceasefire has hit a snag over some disagreements about the conditions in the area. There's a Texas man who was sent to federal prison for storming the Capitol on January 6th. He's now running for Congress. His name is Ryan Nichols of Longview, Texas. He repeated claims that the election was stolen during his announcement as he runs for Congress. He says he doesn't regret his involvement in the riot. He says what he calls a riot. Others call it insurrection. But he says he does feel bad that people got hurt. He pled guilty to assaulting a police officer. He used some pepper spray on Capitol cops in order to force his way into the federal building, and now running for Congress. I don't know. What do you think?
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
He just issuing a formal apology, then I think it'll be fine, Kim.
It's all good? That's all it takes is a
I mean, in this administration, yeah, he's done nothing compared to these other people, I guess.
No. The Pentagon is removing a base commander in Greenland after she sent a critical email related to Vice President Vance's comments on Denmark. One disagreement, one little thing, and you're out. This according to multiple reports. In a statement, the Space Operations Command said Colonel Susanna Myers was let go from her leadership position that it said was a loss of confidence in her ability to lead. Military.com reporting Myers said in the email, the concerns expressed by Vance are not reflective of those at the Space Force base. So now they've got another colonel, Sean Lee, taking over the position, and she's out. One thing. You say one thing, and that's it. Big medical examination today. President Trump set to undergo his annual physical exam. He went on Truth Social earlier this week, making the announcement, saying he's never felt better. Presidents typically visit Walter Reed in Maryland for their annual physicals, with the results then released by the White House physician. So that is where Trump headed this morning before flying off to Mar-a-Lago to maybe, I don't know, get a little fun time in at the golf course again. Maybe that's what he's doing. Yeah, I don't know.
Aren't we all trying to get to the golf course, Kim?
I guess
Sounds
we
like
are.
Perfect weekend to me.
No. A group of Stanford University students in California are facing felony charges for taking part in a pro-Palestinian protest on campus and allegedly damaging a campus building. The Santa Clara County District Attorney's Office says 12 people, including 8 Stanford students, have been charged with felony vandalism and felony conspiracy to trespass. These charges come less than a year after protesters barricaded themselves into the Stanford president's office and allegedly did hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage to Building 10 on the campus. Prosecutors say the protesters broke windows, broke furniture, disabled a camera, and then splashed fake blood around that office as well. Have you heard of this really expensive market in Southern California? I think it's called Erewhon, where you can get like a $20 smoothie. They were selling the strawberries, really expensive strawberries.
Yeah.
Of a gazillion dollars.
And that wasn't from inflation. That was just from they chose it to
fancy straw babies. An upscale grocery store chain in Southern California is now closed due to what public health officials call a vermin infestation. The Los Angeles County Department of Public Health says its inspectors recently discovered Erewhon in Santa Monica had a couple of live cockroaches spotted. One dead cockroach in the tonic bar. This is where they make the $20 smoothies. The health department also said they found major problems with rodents, insects, birds, or animals. Erewhon is known as the most expensive grocery store in America. My bad. I'm sorry. And I think they're going to get rid of the vermin and try to keep selling their very expensive things. I'm telling you.
The image is hideous.
Uh-huh.
What he's got going here is a situation.
In Truckee, California, there is an upside-down American flag now displayed on a rock face at Donner Summit, right near Truckee. It is nearly 7,000 feet in elevation. An upside-down flag symbolizes distress and echoes a recent event in Yosemite Valley, a group of park employees and former employees hung an upside-down flag on El Capitan to raise awareness about job cuts and challenges facing public lands. Many Truckee residents have been protesting the job cuts on Saturday afternoons for the last several weeks. The Truckee Town Council also passed resolutions opposing the federal government's reduction of funding for national forests in here. This is a pretty high-profile in distress signal. You know, when the federal workers are posting the flag upside down, we got a problem. This report is sponsored by wine. Good wine. Oh, the wine, the best wine. As a matter of fact, Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore has a Why Are You Yelling Red that is chef's kiss. Don't forget the Hey, Which One of You is Mark Thompson Pinot Grigio, and they have so many different varietals.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Yeah, it's the wine. I'm telling you, it's the wine you want. Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore offers Mark Thompson Show listeners a 10% discount. Sometimes they'll give you even more of a discount if you order a case. So if you're having an event or you really love one of the wines and you want to just order a case, you can often get more of a discount. All you have to do is use the phrase that pays. You can call Rich at 925
iron rod
699-4576. You can email Rich at rich@tenutavineyards.com and say or type smash it with your iron rod to get the discount. You can see pictures of the winery here.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
Yeah, they do tastings. They actually also have beer on tap. So if you want to go wine tasting with a beer drinker, you can do that. They have some great events coming up at the winery. They have a wonderful Easter event and a Mother's Day event. So check it out, Tenuta Vineyards in beautiful Livermore. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great, baby.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters. No context will suffice to explain the hurt and anguish caused by my words. I apologize to all who have been hurt.
I stand corrected. I misspoke. My words upset so many people.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
God bless America. The end.
There's never been anything like this. Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
It's fantastic.
That's not fake. That's real.
The science is ridiculous.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
There is no defense for my conduct. It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Don't ever use that word.
You get nothing.
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
Seriously, what the
It is the Mark Thompson Show, and yeah, I'm telling you guys, I'm Kim McAllister in for Mark Thompson. This week in politics has been a real doozy. And so we invite my favorite journalists, Michael Shure and Jim Avila, to the show to talk about the week that just happened and to wrap it up. Let's welcome Jim Avila, and I believe we have Michael Shure. But look at you in your baseball cap, you cuties.
Well, dueling. No, see, Jim's looks a little like the Montreal Canadiens, but it's not at a distance. It's Jim's beloved Chicago Cubs, and I'm sporting the National Hockey Leagues. We'll give 10 points to Kim if she can tell me this team.
I forfeit my points.
Yeah, you do. You forfeited. Yeah. Jim knows though. Jim, what am I wearing?
Well, let me put my glasses on.
It's not the Detroit Red Wings. What is it?
It's not the Detroit Red Wings.
Mm-mm.
I think Jim will get this.
I don't know.
It's not the Sharks.
Wow.
It's not clear enough for me, Michael. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Maybe we can get Albert to solve this mystery.
Maybe.
Albert knows.
Oh, easy answer. The
Albert
Buffalo
knows.
Sabres, who
it's the
who
Buffalo
always
Sabres.
tend to win at the end of the season to get their hopes up for the next season, just to have the
Mhm.
same loophole of never
The
winning.
best sweater in the National Hockey League is the Blackhawks.
This should
There you
not
go.
be cut. This shouldn't be cutting into the 48 seconds of sports.
No. We'll do that at the end. It won't
right.
cut into your sports time, I promise.
Yes.
Yes, of course, the commish would know. But let's start with the tariff situation. Now you've got China saying they're going to put 125% tariffs on America. They're not backing down. They say they're reaching out to the EU to work against the American bully. This is getting worse and worse, and the markets are on a roller coaster ride. Michael Shure, what do you think?
I again, when it comes to finance, that's not my area of expertise, but it does certainly seem that retaliatory tariffs are just that. And if that is what China chooses to do, they're well within, I would guess, their rights to do that. What creates the interesting dynamic here is the second part of what you said, Kim, which is that there are alliances being formed against the United States over this, something that U.S. presidents have tried to avoid at many turns throughout history. Now, during periods of war, they've stumbled upon it. For moments, there have been problems, especially when it comes to bringing militaries together for foreign interests, when it is not a land threat to some of those countries. But this is unprecedented. When you have countries going to China, when you have countries that are ordinarily allies of the United States saying, we can't work with this guy, so we've got to come up with our plan B. And hey, you know what? This plan B thing might even be better than what we had before. So we can thank Trump for doing that. So, and I think you're seeing that in places like France and Great Britain. You're certainly seeing it in Canada. And that's what becomes problematic politically. And that's the oversight here, the massive oversight.
We also have Democrats now looking at posts that Trump made about possible market manipulation related to tariffs, wondering if they are profiting off of this. Jim Avila, have you been looking at this? And what do you think? Is there going to be an investigation, or are they just running their lips and talking about possible market manipulation, but nothing will come of it?
I'm not sure anything's going to come of it. Trump controls the Department of Justice, and he controls the Congress. So, I mean, there may be some noise about it, but I don't think anything will come of it. It is interesting that people. I was with an Uber driver yesterday who said this is all about making billionaires more money by exactly what you're talking about. The president signaling that they should buy stocks again just before he took the tariffs off of most countries. So that's out there in the public, and I think it's another thing that is. That kind of hits at the credibility of Donald Trump, which is building, and his approval ratings are going way down. I also agree with everything Michael's saying about the alliances being put in trouble. When the dollar, if some of these countries stop using the dollar as their currency to trade in among each other, that's a real problem for the United States. Also, the problem with tariffs is it costs us money.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the stuff that we buy at Walmart and other low-cost clothing places comes from China. And they're warning us that prices are going to be much higher, 125% higher. So these tariffs are not doing anybody any good. It's not certainly helping the American public. It's not coming into our pockets. So the tariff situation, the trade war is not a good thing. Donald Trump started it. It's on his back, and he realized that and pulled back from most of the tariffs, except for against China, because he realized it was really hurting his credibility. and hurting what the American public thought of his supposed genius of being a businessman. He totally screwed it up.
And I don't. We should not overstate how much foreign leaders liked Donald Trump to begin with, right? He was not a particularly popular person, except with the sort of despotic leaders like, the leader of North Korea, the leader of Hungary, Orban, and of course Kim Jong-un. So I think that we don't want to say that he's ruined every bit of capital he had with these people, but what he's done is he's dug us deeper because the country is now suffering, as Jim said, and that's a little different than Trump's ego suffering or Trump's popularity suffering. And now when the actual people on the ground who are buying either nail polish or Tupperware or clothing are suffering because of what this president is doing simply on a whim, it's really kind of crazy.
Yeah, in addition to how the rest of the world feels, there was a study released this morning out of the University of Michigan's authoritative survey showing that consumer confidence is way, way down. Consumer sentiment fell nearly 11% from March to April and 34% down from this same time last year. So
yeah, that's not an outlier either. That Michigan Consumer Index survey is done every month and is an important monitor of what the economy is doing. And Wall Street watches that, and certainly the politicians watch that. And if consumer confidence is way down, as they say, that's not good for the economy.
It's always been one of Jim's favorite indices.
Indicators, yeah.
The Michigan,
wasn't it consumer confidence that influenced the outcome of the election and got us Trump anyway? Wasn't it everyone so concerned about the economy and prices at the grocery store? And now we're looking at this consumer confidence index dropping like someone dropped a bowling ball on top of it. So does that mean that midterm elections are going to be different? Because we've clearly not gotten what was promised when it comes to prices going down?
Well, there's still a long way away, Kim, the midterms. I think that sentiment is building against Trump, and his popularity ratings and polls are dropping. But he can turn it around. That it's too soon to say about midterms. But the Democrats, not so much the politicians, but the grassroots folks. There are huge demonstrations going on, across protests going around the country. That have been going on in the last week or so, and one of the places you can see that is every night. Rachel Maddow highlights which cities around the country are protesting. In my little city of Oceanside, California, big protest here last Saturday. It's happening all over, but more of a grassroots thing. And so, yes, I think there is a big threat to him from the general public.
And the midterm elections are a different animal anyway. So issues, yes, Kim, what you're saying is right. But there's something different about the type of voter who votes in a midterm election. And it's not the typical MAGA figure. It's not someone who's coming out if Trump is not on the ballot, as we've seen in special and midterm elections in the past. So, yeah, these issues of how much eggs cost and how much tariffs may affect it, Jim's right. We can't predict what that's going to be like a year and a half from now. But what we can predict is that the Republicans tend to have to do more work in these midterms if they're the party party in power. Party out of power usually does better in a midterm election anyway, and he's proven that his voters don't show up when he's not on the ballot, and that would be a problem, notwithstanding what happens with all of these financial issues that are going on right now. Another thing to point out is, a lot of the arguments being made by Trump and his people, which is why I think some of these tariffs were at least paused or suspended, is that it would create manufacturing in the United States. Well, as soon as this happens, what do the businesses that buy so much from China do? They look at other countries and say, well, can we get this for less from Vietnam now that those have been suspended? Can we go to Peru and South America for some of these items for manufacturing? So it's not like they're saying, hey, let's build a factory here, which is what the America Firsters and the Trump people want you to think is going to happen. No, the people that are buying these materials that go into things that maybe are made here, where they buy parts and implements for the production here from China, those are being sourced elsewhere. They're not. It's not like they're building a factory in Smyrna, Illinois right now.
No, as you mentioned, building these factories, the next thing that Trump wants to tariffize is pharmaceuticals. And so he wants the pharmaceuticals to be manufactured within the United States, which is a great goal, except it takes a while to get that set up. So what happens between the time he puts the tariffs on to the time the meds are actually made in the United States, which I would think they have to pay more to make them here because you have to pay American workers more than you have to pay workers in other countries. Does that send the price of medication skyrocketing for people that are already having tough choices about whether to pay their rent or buy their meds?
Well, it has people in India making those medications at a faster clip than they were maybe even a month ago. And yeah, while it's a noble idea, and yeah, let's build it here. The fact of the matter is that these corporations and these bigger companies that do that don't want to spend the money on it, and that costs more money to do it here, even if you were able to build that factory. Immediately, they start looking at other countries. Immediately, you read about the relief that so many of these company owners and CEOs are feeling once the tariffs have been lowered on or suspended on other countries. And, oh, now we can go to Japan. Now we can go to Vietnam and Cambodia and Singapore and try and source some of these items. So it is disingenuous to think this is about building factories in the United States.
One of the things that the members of the Trump administration are spending a lot of time doing is kissing Trump's rear end. We've watched Treasury Secretary Bessent tap dancing all over this tariff thing, but also it looks like if you don't get in line, if you don't offer the right kind of love to Trump, you get fired. We just saw the leader of the Space Force base in Greenland replaced because she dared to criticize Vance and his comments on Greenland and on Denmark. And so I just find it interesting that there was a cabinet meeting yesterday where much of the discussion centered on how great President Trump is and how amazing everything he's doing is. And I wonder how much time could be spent doing actual work versus kissing his backside.
Yeah, I mean, he demands this loyalty and this, fealty that from anybody, and we saw what happened with the poor with Zelensky in the Oval Office when he didn't kiss his ring right away.
Right.
He got his country abandoned by the United States because he didn't say thank you. Those type of things. It's part of the Trump ridiculousness. The more important stuff, Kim, is what's going on now in the courts with the deportation.
Yes.
This guy who was deported to El Salvador, and then Supreme Court actually comes out surprisingly and sides with him and says the United States government, the Justice Department, must, quote, facilitate his release, leaving some gray area there. And then today, the Justice Department goes back in and says, wait, we're not going to do that. We're not going to give you the details of we're going to facilitate that. They've missed 2 deadlines today in direct defiance of not just a federal court, but of the Supreme Court. And they're setting up a real, we keep hearing this business of a constitutional crisis, but this is real. I mean, the Supreme Court has ordered them to get this guy back and to get out, and they're claiming, well, he's in a foreign country and it's El Salvador and we can't tell him what to do. Well, we gave him $6 million to tell him what to do. You can tell him what to do. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Supreme Court handles the fact that they're not doing what they were told to do.
What's interesting as well on this case is that El Salvador, there was an exclusive report on CNN. They say El Salvador says that it's been sharing gang intelligence with the United States, is working directly with the United States, requesting exactly which people here that they would like deported back to El Salvador. So if we as a country are working so closely with El Salvador, how hard is it to pick up the phone and say, oops, we sent this guy on accident, can you send him back? Michael
Yeah.
Shure, why was it taking so long to get that done?
Mr. Art of the Deal evidently made a bad deal with El Salvador. It was one way. We can send them to you, but we can't get them back.
And deference to someone who is similar to Orban in his dictatorial ways, and that's Bukele in El Salvador. So he picks his friends because he knows that they will do what he says because they are like-minded in the way they want to rule. So what does this say? That they're giving sort of carte blanche to El Salvador in this, but they're ignoring what the United States Supreme Court, one that he had a big hand in building, is saying on these things. So
it was a unanimous decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Even his people went his
even his people, right? No, I'm saying, but but what's he doing? He's listening to Bukele in El Salvador and what's coming out of the government in San Salvador there before he's listening to what the Supreme Court has to say on this. The excuse they're giving is this ruling came so quickly that we need time to facilitate this. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's one thing, and it could be true, but there's no reason to believe the things that come from the lips of the people speaking on behalf of this president.
Trump has actually said we don't want this guy back. That's what he said.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is, yes, the Justice Department is saying they need more time, as Michael says, not to bring him back. I mean, the judge today didn't say bring him back today or right now. What the judge said is, tell me what you're doing to get him back. That's not a very high bar for the Justice Department. And for them to refuse to do that is really against the Constitution. And
yeah,
what
that's a great
I hope
point.
this judge does is pull one of those Department of Justice people into her court and ask him those questions, ask him or her those questions directly. And if they don't answer, it's the hooskow.
Yeah.
That's what would happen to you or me if we refuse to answer a judge's question.
Well, this man was, by the way, in the United States legally. He had every right to be here. So, but speaking of the border, ICE posted something that has me very, very concerned. They say now it was a mistake. They shouldn't have posted this, but here's what they said. They said they are working to enforce federal laws to prevent the following from crossing the border illegally: people, money, products, and ideas. Ideas? Wait a minute. What do you mean? You mean like the ideas that Mahmoud Khalil had that is getting him deported? What ideas? You don't want ideas to come into the United States? Am I freaking out for no reason, you guys? Because it seems like ideas are something in America to be protected. We're able to talk about our ideas, to speak our mind. And now at the border, they're trying to keep ideas out. There's idea police going on.
Well, I mean, that's America first to the hilt, right? I mean, the America firsters that only ideas that come here, unless it's an idea that a leader of a Central American country thinks is better than the one that your courts think. So protection of ideas, is it intellectual property? Is it the value placed on that monetarily and otherwise? I don't know. But just the mere fact that they're saying these things is isolationism and protectionism taken to a different degree than I've ever seen it before.
Yeah, even Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, has tried to justify the deportations of these people because they had ideas and they spoke about them, and they said they spoke out against American policy as far as Palestine is concerned. And so what he did is say, if you're here on a green card, now a green card is one step away from citizenship. My grandparents were on green cards their entire lives. They never actually went and got citizenship. They worked and lived here, bought houses, paid taxes, all on a green card. And now, if you have a green card, you cannot, if you're here on a green card, you can't speak out against an American policy.
This is why I want to send Avila to El Salvador.
Marco Rubio has totally lost his spine. He is
but that presumes a spine. I mean, that presumes there was one before.
He is so lining himself up for MAGA support for the next presidential race, and also to keep his Secretary of State. We know that the last Secretary of State under Trump lost his job because he objected to some of the things Trump wanted to do. Marco Rubio is just sitting there and slinking down and letting Trump do whatever he does and run right over him.
We're in extremely dicey territory when you talk about ideas and policing ideas at the border, because who decides the ideas that we want to let in? Who decides what ideas are okay and what ideas are not okay?
We're going Donald Trump
straight down a slippery slope with this.
Yeah, the dictator decides.
Yeah.
Exactly, and to have expectations of the people with whom Trump surrounds himself, especially in this second term, I think is a mistake, because even though Marco Rubio was approved 99-0 by his Senate colleagues to be Secretary of State, what Jim said is absolutely right. There are other ambitions, and I just argue with Jim because I don't think he had a spine when he showed up in the United States Senate. I mean, he's been a man about ambition the whole time. There's nothing wrong with ambition, but to kowtow at every turn just because of ambition is very dangerous in politics, and it doesn't prove terribly successful in the long run for a lot of these people. I don't think that the MAGA people, the people that will be electing or nominating the next candidate for the presidency, whether MAGA helps or not in 2028 is we don't know yet. But I don't think MAGA will help Marco Rubio. I think he's barking up the wrong tree.
We'll switch gears because I saw a story today that the Department of the Interior is now releasing an analysis of fossil fuel deposits that show another 1.30 billion barrels of oil in the Gulf of Mexico's outer continental shelf. So here comes more drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, also known as the Gulf of America, I guess.
Once there's more drilling, it will be.
Yeah, I guess so. They say the new data confirms what we've known all along, that America is sitting on a treasure trove of energy, and we are unlocking it. This from Interior Secretary Doug Burgum in a statement yesterday. So they're going to ramp up oil and gas drilling in coastal areas in the Gulf of Mexico. I guess we should have seen this coming, yes?
Well, here's the thing with this, Kim.
Yeah.
We focus on these day-to-day things, which, are hard to ignore, whether it's immigration or the prices of eggs, we're focused on that. The real issue is climate change. He is destroying this earth. He wants coal back up. He's allowing oil in. He's going to punish California if we don't allow more drilling rigs off of our coast. Donald Trump is going to be personally responsible for the destruction of our earth. And it's not going to hurt me or you, maybe Kim, who's younger than us, but it's going to hurt our kids and our grandkids. It is really something, and it's really dangerous, and it's something that we need to really focus on. And the next candidate for the Democratic Party needs to make that a main issue. He's destroying the earth.
Further to what Jim is saying, it goes under the red hat of MAGA, which is the notion that making America great again. I asked so many people who I've talked to what that means to them. And it is going back to a time when there weren't regulations. Well, we have regulations now because of that time when there weren't regulations. And the climate regulations, we have learned the hard way we are in desperate need of. And so, yes, was there a time when you could drill in unregulated ways offshore in the United States from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific coast to the Atlantic coast to the, to basins around the Virgin Islands even, and Puerto Rico, the deep trenches there. There's been so much that we have learned that just saying "Make America Great Again" and going back to a great time when we could just be kind of cavalierly drilling, that's not what America wants, and that's certainly not what the Earth wants from America. And that's part of the problem, is the ideology that kind of informs every single, Jim said not to focus on the day-to-day, which is correct, because this is about the macro. But when you see the day-to-day, this ideology informs that day-to-day in whatever realm you're looking at in this country, whether it's about race, whether it's about immigration, which I think are the same issue, whether it's about economics, protectionism, military, and now, of course, drilling, which equals climate. It's all the same.
Let me just point out, I'm older than both of you. When I was growing up in Los Angeles, in the San Gabriel Valley, in the late 50s and 60s, there were days when we had to cancel Little League practice because you couldn't breathe.
Oh.
These regulations, and now you look outside and it's clear. Even in Los Angeles, the air is pretty clear. And that's because of regulation, is because of tailpipe and factories that have been told can't use coal anymore. And he wants to bring that back to a point. I can remember my lungs hurting as a kid. Don't do this. This is crazy.
To the last story I present to you both today. We talked a little earlier on the show about Elon Musk, and there is a bunch of Democrats sending a letter to the White House reminding them that he has only got, 130 days, and then he's got to get out. But now today we have a new announcement. The Social Security Administration says today that going forward, its communication will be relying solely on X, or formerly Twitter, right? Instead of traditional press releases or memos that are posted to the agency's website, they will only be using X to communicate to the press and the public. That is it. It'll become, they say, their communication mechanism. So there it is. I mean, it seems like even if Trump does only work for 130 days, or if his position with Doge slowly sinks away, his tentacles are all over the U.S. government, and I don't know how we get rid of that.
I just hope they just need to answer the phone. The Social Security Administration.
They're not answering.
Has already messed up by not answering the phone, and they wanted people to go on their computers to connect. These are old people. The Social Security folks are old people, and they don't necessarily aren't that computer savvy in many cases, and so they're stuck. So this Doge business of not answering the phone, using Twitter or X or whatever it is not connecting with these are not 20-somethings that are on Social Security. For the most part, these are older folks, and they're older Trump voters, and he's pissing them off, which is not smart.
Yeah, and it's really true. It's who's your audience. Your Social Security audience is not necessarily the one that is savvy about X. And of all of the communications, first of all, X communication, I think a bad thing, right? That all these people are expected to get any updates from the Social Security Administration on X, on social media, when many of them have no facility with it at all. It's absurd. Not only is it absurd, it's gonna be something that members of Congress are going to be hearing about, and the people they're hearing about it from, as Jim correctly states, are not. It's not about party. They're going to be hearing from older people who just have no way of getting in touch with the Social Security Administration, who are missing a check, whose checks didn't come to the right place, whose checks were less than they ought to have been. All the normal customer service and customer relations calls that the SSA has gotten for so long. So this is wildly irresponsible, and I can't imagine that Congress won't step in once their phones continue to ring, because you can reach a congressman and a congresswoman still by phone.
we have come to the portion of the show where Michael Shure takes us on a ride for 48 seconds regarding sports.
And we bring Albert in for this all the time.
Yep.
But
Come on
since
in,
we
Albert.
had, you know, I mean, I think people want to talk about the Masters. I will mention that my beloved Rangers, even though I'm wearing the handsome hat of the Buffalo Sabres, that the Masters really taking center stage here. I don't really care about it a lot, but it's one of the ones that I watch. Albert, what do we think? Jim, Kim, who's going to win this thing?
I mean, Rory had a terrible first round, and he just recovered today by shooting I think a 6 under. I'm definitely not watching while I'm working the show, though. Just to want to clarify.
Two double bogeys yesterday, and
No,
the highlight of yesterday, however, was the Spanish golfer who had to use the bathroom,
right,
and walked over and peed in the river, the stream that goes through the Masters, and was seen by the public. That was the highlight.
That was a highlight, and you know, the Masters, not a place. Thank you, where you want that to happen. The NHL season ends a week from Saturday, and the Rangers, it looks like, are not going to make the playoffs, but there's still excitement in hockey because Ovechkin, Albert, as we predicted, he broke the record, and that was a lot of fun.
He's a Putin lover.
He's not a Putin lover. He's somebody whose family is in Russia and has been. He said that he just wants peace, but he knows that if he were to have said something terrible about Putin, there would be reprisal against his brothers and his family there. It's just something you don't do. He's not a Putin over criticizer. That's fair to say, but I wouldn't say that he's a Putin lover because I get why he takes that posture. It's been well explained.
That's 48 seconds of sports.
But I'm going to 49. But Wayne Gretzky, whose record who broke,
we're not done.
is a
Trump lover.
Is a Trump lover.
Guy.
You can't spell
that we do know
about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
48 seconds of sports. Jim, Avila, Michael Shure, thank you guys for being here and recapping the week in politics. Always love the conversations with you too, and we'll see you next Friday.
All righty.
Bye, boys. Michael Shure and Jim Avila, everybody. And we...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now switch gears to more fun stuff, right? This is the entertainment portion of the show. He comes and goes on a rainbow. It is Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster, right? And Michael Snyder's report is sponsored by the Comic Book Boys. Michael Snyder, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi, Kim. And yeah, the Comic Book Boys are in as a sponsorship on the Culture Blast segment for the MTS. And, you know, I'm a big comic book fan and collector. I have always been that way. I taught myself to read as a toddler via Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge comics written and drawn by the great Carl Barks. And I collected zillions of them, but, you know, it got to be a bit much, and I wanted to monetize my collectibles. So I reached out to the Comic Book Boys, and they are located in a very cool warehouse headquarters in Southern California, and they can tell you what the worth of individual comics and collections are. They buy collections in toto. They sell comics on consignment. And if you're in Southern California, you can bring your comic books to them or arrange for them to look over what you have. And I got to say, depending on what they're working with at any given time, the warehouse is a wonderland if you go there. When I was there, I saw some amazing vintage books in mint or near mint condition that they were selling at impressive prices. And it's kind of like you're looking at these things from, like, I don't know, 1948. Mark says he has a Batman comic from the 40s. He has yet to show it to me, and I am going to probably push the issue next time I'm over at Shea Thompson.
That's not fake. That's real.
It's kind of like a peek at a corner of American cultural history. And if you have enough comics and you're anywhere in the continental U.S., they can arrange to transport your collection to their warehouse. Chris is there, one of the boys. He's great. They are fans. They're collectors. I always felt I was among friends while dealing with them. And if you're interested in seeing if they can help you with your collection, check them out at cbbauctions.com, cbbauctions.com. They're the comic book boys. There you
Awesome.
go.
All right. Let's move into the movies. What do we got?
Well, no, first I got to say, you mentioned it earlier. Passover starts this Saturday evening,
Yes.
and it's the week-long celebration of the exodus of the Israelites from bondage in Egypt back in the BC. And I know it sounds kinky, bondage, but it was, a bad slavery
with
thing.
your iron rod.
God sent 10 plagues to convince Pharaoh and the Egyptians to let the Israelites go. Frogs, locusts, blood, cooties. I think thinning hair was one of the plagues. Maybe that's just what I'm dealing with. Anyway, if you've seen the 10 Commandments, you know the story. I just want to wish a happy Passover to the Jewish community, although I don't know how anyone with a palate could be happy about what's on the table at the Seder dinner. Kosher food and haute cuisine are mutually exclusive. Seriously. Maybe indigestion is one of the plagues. Anyway, all right. I got that out of my system. I just wanted to acknowledge Passover because it's a big deal this weekend for
Yeah.
many of
Happy
our
Passover. Wonderful.
friends. We should get to movies. And I want to kick off with an incredibly impactful and relevant film called Warfare. And it is a no-nonsense powerhouse plunge into a firefight in the middle of the Iraq War, or Iraq War, if you prefer. And it's based on the recollections of soldiers who survived the conflict, especially Ray Mendoza, who co-wrote and co-directed it with Alex Garland, the writer-director responsible for, among other things, Civil War and 28 Days Later. So modern filmmaking techniques place you inside the mission, and an ensemble of up-and-coming actors, some of whom you might recognize, deliver the grit and the humanity. Some of these guys are out there working and pretty well known. DeFero Unatai is one of them. Will Poulter, who has been in a Marvel movie or two. Cosmo Jarvis, who was the British guy in the miniseries Shogun. These are talented guys. Michael Gandolfini, James's kid, and he's currently in Daredevil Born Again. They're all in this troupe. And I have to tell you, this is resolutely brutal and uncompromising and not for the faint of heart, but it is a stunning achievement. If you ever wanted to know what it was like to be in the middle of war, Warfare is one of the most vivid recreations of that circumstance. It's in theaters right now, and I think it should be experienced in theaters by those who are interested precisely for its immersive quality. High marks to Warfare.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like it definitely is something that'll leave an impact on you after you see it, right?
Yeah, a couple of the other actors, Joseph Quinn, who's going to be in the upcoming Fantastic Four film as Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. He's one of the troupe. Charles Melton. It's a great cast, and they disappear into these roles as soldiers in the middle of this madness. And powerful. All right. As the Amateur spins its tale of espionage and international intrigue, plausibility takes a leap out the window like one of Putin's Russian thugs pushed it. You know what I mean? The Amateur is not bad. It has some really intriguing moments, and it's anchored by some decorated actors led by Rami Malek in the high-tech expert under fire mode of his character in the TV series Mr. Robot, rather than, the flamboyance of his Oscar-winning portrayal of the Queen lead singer Freddie Mercury. This is not rock and roll. The supporting cast features Lawrence Fishburne, John Bernthal, Rachel Brosnahan, that's right, Midge Maisel is in this thing, and Michael Stolberg, but they don't get anywhere near a lot of screen time. That's all on Malek as Charlie Heller, a CIA code expert in Langley, whose wife, played by Brosnahan, is, and it's not a spoiler alert, it happens at the top of the film, she's killed in a terrorist attack while she's on a business trip to London.
What?
So he's rebuffed by his bosses when he demands that they go after the terrorists. So Charlie takes it upon himself to seek vengeance. I know he's kind of a skinny, wiry little guy. You don't think he has what it takes, but he's going to track down and eliminate the villains despite nothing more than a brief course of training by a cynical agent played by Fishburne. Of course, there are vague and convoluted reasons why the CIA agrees to leave it all to Charlie. Director James Hawes has worked on some of my absolute favorite TV shows, including Slow Horses, Snowpiercer, Penny Dreadful, and Black Mirror and Doctor Who. Both of the latter two both have new seasons up this weekend. He's good at his job, Hawes, and he keeps things moving here. But the formula embracing script and the limitations of telling a story this globe spanning and potentially sprawling in the time allotted a feature film, even one coming in at 2 hours, they kind of undermine the final product. It felt like there was too much going on. To be honest, I think The Amateur would have probably worked better as a mini series, and I won't call it amateurish. A little disappointing, but I thought, it does have some value. It just isn't what it might have been. The Amateur is in theaters. It opens wide today.
That's a disappointment because I was kind of wanting to see this one, so I'm sad that you didn't really love it.
No, it has its moments. It really does. But, I just could have been so much better. I feel like it was a missed opportunity. All right, are you ready? Are you ready? My
ready.
favorite movie of the weekend, I think, it was Drop, and it's coming out today in theaters, and it is shockingly good. I thought it was going to be some kind of silly exploitation, but its last reel almost goes off the rails. But Drop is one of those unexpected delights that ends up being better than many movies that seem to have more impressive pedigrees. It certainly was a blast to watch, really. Drop is a tension-packed, creatively shot thriller that could not have been made 20 years ago because so much of its story relies on invasive, genuine, up-to-the-minute tech to enable its threats. Yeah, there are no really bankable stars here, but no problem. The cast features a handful of talented actors who have done some solid work on TV shows, starting with Megan Fahey, who earned an Emmy nomination for her role on The White Lotus Season 2. In Drop, she plays Violet, a widowed mom on a first date at a fancy skyscraper restaurant in Chicago. And Kim, this is clearly one of the worst first dates ever, since right in the middle of it, she gets a message dropped on her phone from someone in the vicinity. The message instructs her that she must perform a number of tasks while at dinner, ending with a command to kill her date, or her sister and young son will be killed back at her house.
What?
Oh.
Yeah. So the date is a handsome fellow played by Brandon Sklenar, and he seems like it's the dream date. Remember, you used to have that little game girls would play called Dream Date. This guy seems like the real deal. He's like a photojournalist type. He's good looking. He's charming. He's very, very gallant. But she's got a killer.
He played as the hunk in the Yellowstone spinoff in 1936, I think it is.
Yeah, right. I remember him with, he was on It Ends With Us. He's been out in the marketplace for a little while, but
What he's got going here is a situation.
It is giving him a bit of a spotlight. Drop was directed by Christopher Landon from a very lean and canny script by Gillian Jacobs and Christopher Roach. The plotting is intricate yet never confusing. The excitement is palpable, and it's really easy to be invested in Violet and cheer her on in this, I call it an untenable, deadly situation. Drop is in theaters. It's the sort of reason you go to the movies. One of the main reasons I go to the movies is be entertained, enjoy yourself, have some fun, and Drop has you on the edge of your seat. It's pretty cool. So
you got me on this one. It's on the list, Michael. It's on the list now.
Okay. All right. A fresh entry in the bare bones indie comedy of discomfort genre. I think that's really a genre. Sacramento. Hey, Northern California residents and audience members. Sacramento is a neurotic buddies on the road picture with the distinct advantage of 4 capable performers taking on the tidy script co-written by the movie's director and one of its 2 male leads, Michael Angarano. And you've seen him in various movies and shows. And here he plays a sort of aging lost boy named Ricky, who has no girlfriend, no prospects, and no direction. His somewhat estranged buddy is Glenn, played by the always nerdy Michael Cera. I mean, you're in for moments of cringe, especially since Glenn is a bundle of angst with a very precarious job situation. and a pregnant, albeit super competent wife. And by the way, the wife is played by no less than Kristen Stewart, who subtly conveys the sort of love and patience you'd have to need to be married to a train wreck like Glenn. I mean, really. If the movie is a bit slight, it only runs 90 minutes, and it does manage to convey the scary nature of facing adult responsibilities like parenthood as the bickering Ricky and Glenn drive from LA to Sacramento with the ostensible mission to scatter Ricky's late father's ashes in his hometown. At least that's what Ricky says he wants to do in order to convince Glenn to join him. And the trip is increasingly an uncomfy ride as Ricky plays on Glenn's anxieties, manipulating him to elongate the journey for reasons that eventually come to light, and for reasons that involve a character played by the engaging Maya Erskine of TV's Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Yeah, 4 really good performers here. In some ways, Sacramento is like seeing 2 versions of Kieran Culkin's tragically annoying character in A Real Pain on a road trip together. And you know what? That's actually pretty cool. Sacramento is in select theaters, and I hope one of them is in Sacramento, considering the location of the movie.
Recommended.
Yeah, to an extent, for sure.
Okay.
You may get that skin crawling feeling when these 2 guys are, kind of going at it, but here's a movie I really can't recommend, although you may want to watch it for, I don't know, I'll explain why you may want to watch it. It's called Gunslingers, and it's a derivative, forgettable Western that's set in the early 1900s, wherein a shady character named Thomas Keller, played by Stephen Dorff, is wanted for the New York City murder of a certain wealthy fellow. So he goes on the lam and ends up hiding out in a small Kentucky town among other questionable characters until a posse led by his brother comes a-looking for him and all hell breaks loose. So other familiar faces in Gunslingers besides Dorff include Heather Graham as a woman with a stake in Keller's fate, Costas Mandylor as a town bigwig, C. Ma in a very bad wig as the town sheriff, and here's the reason to watch, Nicolas Cage. I mean, there is always a certain pleasure watching Cage in full bull goose loony mode, and though it's little more than a cameo as this kind of weirdly twitchy gravel-voiced gunman who has renounced violence, turned to photography, and embraced Jesus, he just doesn't disappoint. I mean, the movie is, a cast-off, but I mean, Cage is so compelling, even when he's thoroughly off the wall, which he often is. So if Gunslingers is a Western retread that's primarily an extended shootout in one grubby locale with a little bit of brotherly angst thrown in, Cage doesn't care. I mean, he has another more promising movie coming out shortly called The Surfer. So, hey, let's cash a paycheck and have a little fun. As for the B-movie director, screenwriter Brian Skiba, and the movie Gunslingers, the movie is mostly a dud. Maybe we should call it a C movie. And one more quick casting note, a blonde, somewhat appealing actress named Scarlett Stallone. Scarlett Stallone plays the daughter of Mandylor's character. And yes, she is the daughter of one Sylvester Stallone. I'm just surprised he didn't name her Adrian.
Yeah. Is she good in it?
She's okay. Yeah. I mean, are you good while covered with bird droppings? I don't know. It's sort of, that's, I guess, a comparison here. Gunslingers is in select theaters and available for streaming on demand if you want, and you may want, I don't know. Okay,
So
I'm going to just.
Is it recommended or is it a?
No, it's not very good. It's not very good.
good.
I didn't hate it because I had a chance to watch, Nick Cage go bonkers, but it really is not a very good. I mean, we've been there before.
Yeah.
It's not a really good movie. Kind of a movie I'm sort of on the fence about is Zero, which is about a couple of Americans who come to consciousness separately in Dakar, Senegal, with bombs strapped to their chests.
Oh.
And a voice in their phones is telling them that they have to do a variety of tasks that is going to actually cause a political uprising, get worse in Dakar, or they're going to get blown up, or worse. And it's kind of interesting. The voice on the phones is courtesy of Willem Dafoe. And that's kind of a high-end piece of casting. But everybody else is like, who is this guy? I don't know who this guy. Who is this guy? So the guy who we first meet with a bomb strapped to his chest is played by Huss Miller. The second guy is sort of like looks like a World Wrestling World Wrestling Federation villain, played by Cam McHargue. And not a lot of familiar faces, but it's kind of well shot by the director Jean-Luc Herbalou. And this guy Herbala, and he also co-wrote it with Huss Miller. And I wouldn't call it a vanity project. It certainly seems to want to point out the dicey geopolitical situation we all face. There's a lot of issues about theocracy and the people being oppressed in African nations, including Senegal. There are moments, and there's a lot of tension, and there are some explosions, but it doesn't totally congeal for me. It is in fact in theaters and also available for streaming. It's called Zero. It's interesting, and I guess I'm kind of damning with faint praise, but it certainly kept my attention. Let's just wrap up by talking about a documentary that I was completely caught up in. It's called 1-to-1 John and Yoko. And it is a documentary directed by Kevin MacDonald, who has done some narrative films like The Last King of Scotland, but he's also done some documentary work. And it is utilizing archival audio and video and some recreations. It is a look at the almost 2 years that John Lennon and Yoko Ono spent in New York in the early 1970s living in Greenwich Village. This is before they moved to the Dakota. This is before little Sean was born. This is when John and Yoko were trying to get her custody of Kyoko, her daughter from her first marriage. And it's also very much about Lennon's only post-Beatles concert where he wasn't just a guest star, the 1-to-1 concert, which was meant to basically raise funds for disadvantaged children. And I have to tell you, I was just fascinated by it. It seems like we may be entering the era of Beatles documentary overkill, but the performances by Lennon and his backup band, quite good. And by the way, that concert also featured guest appearances by, among other people, Sha-Na Na and Stevie Wonder, who comes out and sings on Give Peace a Chance. But what's really interesting is to see how genuinely committed this very privileged couple was to important socio-political causes. The freeing of political prisoners, money diverted to orphanages that were mistreating kids, ending the war in Vietnam. It's really a vivid recreation of that time, and it shows what sort of people they really were. And it also touches on how hated Yoko Ono was by Beatles fans. She was disdained by other members of the group from what she says in various interviews here. And people look down on her despite her career as an artist, very respected, very innovative. I thought it was pretty fantastic. And it's episodic. It's not for everyone. It's a tiny little slice of the John Lennon story, but it's still pretty cool. And you can see it in select theaters, including IMAX.
Oh, cool. And that was 1-to-1 John and Yoko.
Yes, indeed it was.
I think that you are the ones that recommended a streaming option for me called The Pit.
I did not, but I am a big fan of Noah Wyle, and I do believe it's been praised in other corners.
It's so good. I for some reason I thought it was you, but yeah. So I am looking forward to your streaming options and hoping that you might have some more good stuff to recommend.
I have one of my absolute favorite shows in recent memory, The Studio. Now, as someone who we don't have to get into details, works in the film and television industry doing writing and development stuff, specifically animation. And as someone who's on studio lots when I'm in Los Angeles for screenings and for meetings, The Studio is hilarious and creepily accurate. It is part of what we would have to call as we discussed earlier, the comedy of discomfort, which is a kind of genre that basically became something codified with the British sitcoms, The Office, which of course spawned an American version and various other international versions, and Peep Show, where the lead characters are kind of creepy, can't get out of their own way. And in the studio, Seth Rogen, who I'm not a big fan of, but he is brilliantly cast here as Matt Remick, who has just been appointed head of Continental Studios after a shakeup. And his longtime mentor, played by the great Catherine O'Hara, has been pushed out, and reciprocally, he gives her an independent production deal with the studio, so she's around in the series. His best buddy for many years is his assistant. He's played by Ike Barinholtz. It is hilarious. It is creative. It's an inside baseball thing in terms of how things go down in Hollywood, and it is, I guess, of the moment, and it does some really intriguing things. The second episode, no spoilers. And by the way, I want to point out that, as in some of these kind of docu-comedies or mockumentaries, we have a number of Hollywood actors and directors playing themselves, all kind of sucking up to the character of Matt Remick to get their projects made at the studio. And that includes, of all people, you got to love it, the esteemed Sarah Polley, who appears in the second episode as herself, directing a movie wherein she needs to get a tracking shot. That's one long shot during golden hour, and Rogen as Remick keeps messing up the shot. And the entire episode is one long tracking shot. In addition to it being about a tracking shot, the creativity is brilliant. And no less than Martin Scorsese appears in the first episode. One of the things this movie does is show the absurdity of what goes on in Hollywood now. I'm always complaining about, intellectual property and trying to use a brand to sell something, to build a franchise. In the first episode, the head of the corporation that has acquired the studio, and he's played by Bryan Cranston, wants to do a movie series built around the character of the Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah, the big giant pitcher that busts through walls and what have you.
Yeah.
And Matt decides to try to get Scorsese to do the Kool-Aid Man movie. And I won't say anything more than that, but it's pretty inspired. Every episode has been off the charts great so far. High recommendations for The Studio, which is visible on Apple TV. And it's been directed and co-written by Rogen and his longtime partner, Evan Goldberg. At least most of the episodes have been. And it also includes, among other people, the great and talented Catherine Hahn as a studio flunky. High marks.
Okay, The Studio. Wonderful.
I got it. I have another one for you. I like crime stuff. Mobland at Paramount Plus was originally conceived as a prequel to Ray Donovan, talking about how the Donovan family ended up deep in crime and in Boston here in the United States. And it was retooled by Ronan Bennett to become a contemporary crime drama about a battle between two families in London trying to control the criminal trade there. And oh, what a cast. Tom Hardy plays the fixer, who might be the kind of proto Ray Donovan type, the head of one of the families. And man, what a career resurgence, played by Pierce Brosnan in a brilliant performance that embodies the viciousness of this gangland leader. His wife, played by Helen Mirren. That's right, Dame Helen Mirren plays not so much Amal, but his partner, Brosnan's character's partner in crime. It is aces. Patty Considine plays one of the Brosnan character's sons. It's an extended crime family. Mobland has everything I like in one of these sorts of shows. It's available currently on Paramount Plus. Again, Big recommendation. And, I mentioned Doctor Who earlier. It's back for its second season with Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, and he is joined by a new companion. He is the alien who travels through time and space in what looks like a police box from the 60s in the UK. And,
Right.
it doesn't matter whether it's the past or the future or alien worlds or on Earth. And he usually has a human companion. And this time it's a nurse, amusingly enough, a doctor with a nurse. And she's Belinda Chandra, and she's played by Virata Sethu of Andor, who is a really wonderful actress. But she doesn't want to travel with them. Usually they're all eager. Oh, yeah, how exciting. I'm going to see the universe. No, she wants to just get back home. And it looks incredibly promising. Doctor Who is back, and it's back on Disney Plus and on the BBC Player. So I think that pretty much wraps things up for today.
Right. Let's recap it. You say, as far as movies go, Warfare is a stunning achievement. You called it vivid and powerful and a really great movie to see in theaters. The Amateur, you said it's got a little too much going on. Better it would have been as a mini series, and it was a little disappointing to you that you called it a missed opportunity. Drop was your favorite movie of the weekend. You said this kind of movie is the reason you go to movies in the first place. Drop. Sacramento, you called it cringy, but it's got a great cast and you recommend it. That's Sacramento. For Gunslingers, this Nicolas Cage movie, you said he's so good in it. You said the movie is a bit of a retread, but Cage, good.
Well, I want to point out, Kim, it's a small role. He's one of an ensemble, but
right. But you don't recommend it. You said no.
Not
You're
really.
not going for that. No.
No.
Zero. I got the meh feeling from you on Zero.
There were things about it I liked and things about it where I kind of shrugged, and it was a noble attempt at making a thoughtful geopolitical action film with explosions, but
Gotta love that. 1-to-1, John and Yoko. You love that it highlighted their commitment to causes. You said it's a fantastic movie and you really loved it. Again, that's 1-to-1, John and Yoko. It's a documentary.
Yeah, fantastic music sequences and insightful. But it's just a tiny slice of his life, though.
For streaming, you say The Studio from Apple TV is inspired. You loved this one. It's a comedy of discomfort with Seth Rogen. You're recommending The Studio, again, on Apple TV. And Mobland, you loved this one too on Paramount Plus. Great cast. You called it Aces. You recommend Mobland on Paramount Plus. And there you go. That is it. The movie recommendations, and go Giants, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And go Warriors. They have to win tonight, and they have to actually beat the Clippers on Sunday. The Giants are at Yankee Stadium tonight. Titans, both the Giants as a former New York franchise, going back home, ? And we'll see what they can do. The new look Giants, with the resurgence of young Jung-Hoo Lee. And, I'm excited about both teams, but, we never know until the game is played, do we?
We don't. You can find more of Michael's writing at thevoicesf.org, thevoicesf.org. And this report is sponsored by the Comic Book Boys. You can find them online, cbbauctions.com. Thank you, Michael Snyder.
You're very welcome, Kim. Everyone have a lovely weekend, and we'll be back with you next Friday.
He comes and goes on a rainbow. Bye, Michael Snyder.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for everything. So awesome. Love to have him on the show. And so many people to thank, Albert. So many, including Eugenio de Arnal with a $5 super sticker helping to support the Mark Thompson Show. Harry Magnan comes in with a $10 super chat saying, still not playing favorite. Love both of these guys. Why not a full minute of sports? He picked 48 seconds. What can I say? That's the way it is.
I mean, 48 is a very memorable number. So
it is
indeed.
It's
very good producing on his end for a segment.
There you go. Luis with $5. Donald Trump, good businessman, same as Hannibal Lecter, strict vegan, he says. Thank you for the super chat, Luis. And Vilma with a $10 super chat says the court should retract presidential immunity. They must realize they have created a dictator who will ignore any Supreme Court ruling that he wants. Vilma. Yeah, that presidential immunity, that's troublesome, isn't it? Vilma with $10. Thank you to everyone contributing to the show today. You'll find us at themarkthompsonshow.com. Thank you to all of our guests. That's Michael Shure and Jim Avila and Michael Snyder. Thank you to Albert, a great Friday Fabulous Florida today as well. Hope everyone has a really, really good weekend. Check us out on Monday. Mark will return, and Gary Dietrich will be back on Monday to talk politics as well. So it is a show not to be missed.
And also on Monday, we will have the voting will begin for the finals of March Madness.
That's right. It is I Blame
I'm
You.
Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
And Girl Baby Girl, don't even play.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. The After Party Live is next. Please join us. See you soon.